I think B's work and the work of the Urban Spectrum has strengthened the African American community because it's given people the opportunity to have voice. I think it's given people permission to speak and want to participate in the communication process. And I think she's just done a tremendous job of highlighting and celebrating people of color and telling stories, especially the history maker stories, and honoring African Americans who make a difference, giving the community a platform.
The Urban Spectrum has done a great job in covering everyone. They've highlighted my family, the Morrison family, and my great-grandfather, George Morrison Sr.'s contributions to pioneering jazz in Colorado. They've also highlighted the accomplishments of my grandfather, George Morrison Jr., and my grandmother, Marjorie Morrison, and their contributions they've made to civic action, to their church, to their community, to education, and to government. My husband's been honored and recognized within the Urban Spectrum as being someone in the community that makes a difference. And the Urban Spectrum does a great job of highlighting Black businesses and people within the African American community who are making significant contributions to business and letting the community know how we're impacting the economy on a regional scale.
You know, I think B and the Urban Spectrum has done a tremendous job with inspiring people, telling everybody's story. I think of a couple occasions. One is the Urban Leadership Foundation. I have the privilege of serving as the president and CEO of an organization that focuses on leadership for people of color. And she has given that organization a huge voice in the community. Not only has it allowed us to share what we're doing, talk about community service projects, but really, you know, our missions align with getting education out, getting information out, being able to do that. And then another thing, me personally, I mean, the Urban Spectrum has been there for every major point in my career. A few years ago, they did a story on me where they said that, you know, I was a role model for inclusiveness and talking about, you know, the work of bridging the gap between millennials and baby boomers and our forefathers and foremothers. And, you know, just the fact that they care enough to tell those kind of stories, you know, just is the true embodiment of who they are. They really want just to get out not only the stuff that everybody talks about, but the things that are really important to our community.
You know, I think that it's derived its strength from being a catalyst for changing the narrative for us. And I think the newspaper has empowered us tremendously as a community. And just the stories that it's been able to tell and the way it's been able to shape us and the contributions that we've made to the state of Colorado.
Yeah, and I think that the strength just comes from the community. Like, the Urban Spectrum just does a tremendous job of connecting with the community and telling the story and then connecting the readership together.
Well, and it's been an advocate too. I mean, because sometimes when mainstream media has told a story and has told our story, the Urban Spectrum many times, I remember, has come back and retold our story.
The right way.
And helped to clear up the narrative and
Absolutely.
to change the narrative when mainstream media has sometimes misconstrued something or told a story with a different kind of spin. So it's been great to have kind of advocacy through journalism too. Powerful movers and shakers. I think it's an overarching sense of responsibility, and understanding the responsibility to be true to the legacy that our families have given us, and understanding that we're here working for them and their peers. And so I think it's just responsibility. So I don't know that it's being a powerful mover and or shaker, but I think it's a necessity to contribute to a community who's given so much to us. Because I think both of us are true products of this community. We're both natives. I'm a seventh generation Denver native. And so I don't even think it would be right if we weren't working to make Colorado a better place, to strengthen the Black community, and to help give them something to do and to give them a path and direction to go down.
Well,
It's a provocative question in this era of
yeah, man, I think it's super important. First, the Urban Spectrum is a media outlet that people trust. They've come to understand. They know, it's amazing to know B and see her out in the community, seeing her same restaurants, right? See her having the same experiences, knowing her family and her children. She's done a tremendous job of not only telling our story, but allowing people to see that she's real and to know that has similar experiences in life and is focused on telling those stories. I think it's of vital importance that the Urban Spectrum stays around. To Simone's point earlier, when you're talking about telling our story and making sure that the story is told right, in an area or in a time of alternative facts, we have to have a voice that's telling the truth, and we have to have an outlet where people can get information so we can stay awoke, involved, engaged. And I don't know what other media outlets can do it as well as the Urban Spectrum can. And I hope that my kids get to grow up with the Spectrum so that they can get that same information, have that same sense of responsibility, get those same role models from our community who look like them, who they can see, touch, and feel. It's great to have, it's great that our children grew up with Obama, but it's amazing that they can look at a magazine and read about their grandfather or Wellington Webb or B or countless other folks who are in our community that they can see every day. I think one thing that the community needs to know and people need to realize is that, the Urban Spectrum is truly a tool, but it's been a lot of sweat, blood, and tears, I think, for B. And we've got to be better, I think, as a community. And, if it's your son's birthday, put an article in the Spectrum. Let's go out of our way and be intentional about providing resources and support so that the paper's here to stay, especially in times of digital print and social media. I think about the Rocky Mountain News. We grew up with that, and it's not here anymore for many similar reasons. And I want to make sure that the Urban Spectrum stays here forever.
And I think too, it's an enterprise. He's created a true enterprise, and I think it's our responsibility as a community to not only support it, but I also think it's our responsibility to tell the story of the Urban Spectrum to other communities, because I think our story is their story as well, and so I think it's imperative that we continue to help the Urban Spectrum grow by introducing other people to the Urban Spectrum and the journalism and the stories that the Urban Spectrum tells. Transcendental. I think that it's done a good job in weathering the storm and transcending what journalism is and what the African American experience is in Colorado. And I think it's done a phenomenal job in doing those things.
And I would, she's the smart one, those $1 million words. No, seriously though, I would just say family. The Urban Spectrum is something that you can open, look in, and see yourself and see your community. And it's really, I think, created a family feel. and created an opportunity for people to just keep connected. So.
Gavin had something too, because he's a reader of the spectrum.
Okay, give us your one word. Yeah.
What's your one word you choose?
I think my one word is it's really extreme.
And why is that?
Well, I really don't know, but I think it's kind of cool being a good citizen in your community because
Zoe, you are.
my dad is always telling me you can do your best and have fun all day long, focus strong, and a man always keeps his word, so I think it's really important.
Zoe, do you have a word?
You want to say something?
What's your word, Zoe?
What's your word, Zozo?
There you have it.
Center of attention?
Well, the first articles I ever published as a writer were published in the Urban Spectrum. And, you know, of course, they covered my political career. First time during the Urban League, my leadership of the Urban League, and then as a member of City Council and now as mayor. The Urban Spectrum has always been generous to be there and be a part of the coverage and helping to make sure that our communities of color in particular are knowing exactly what their elected officials of color are doing.
No. Okay, well, for me, it has not been political, but it has been as far as with my career, my performing career. Started a long time ago, and Urban Spectrum did several articles on me, and as well did a feature for me for Music Month a few years back. And so it's just always been a big part, just like Michael said, within our community and really, uplifting our people of color.
Well, first of all, through Lincoln Hills, the African American resort, very renowned in the community in Colorado. We had the great pleasure of being part of a team that put that back together, started reacquiring the property back in 2007. And Lincoln Hills, as a historic community and as a now fly fishing resort and place for lots of philanthropic activities through Lincoln Hills Cares, we've been covered a number of times, and we're very thankful and pleased that we can get that message out, and Urban Spectrum is the first media outlet that ever covered us.
Urban Spectrum also covered the Burkett Family Foundation, which Matthew and I founded, and that primarily centers around empowering nonprofits within our community as it relates to education and the 5 Points Business District.
Man, it's been a lot. It's been a lot. I mean, I know talking with Piper, she spoke about how well they covered when I won a championship back in 2004. She could share that with you, but I know for me, the most recent thing is I did this endorsement of Senator Hillary Clinton in Park Hill, my neighborhood that I grew up in, and they came and they covered it when they wrote a story on it. And but they've been very supportive of me and our family my entire career, really. The champion.
Yeah, I just remember the full coverage of the championship year in 2004, coming back from Michigan when we were living there, to come home, you know, for the summer and to see coverage of everything that happened that quick season, and to come back and watch the coverage of everything that happened at Skyland and just the celebration. It was good to see a lot of that covered by our hometown.
I believe the first time Denver Urban Spectrum covered us was maybe a year or two ago when Governor Hickenlooper was running for re-election, and we had him come by the house, and he was gracious enough to speak to many of the attendees at our house that evening, and it was quite an event. And B came out and covered it, and I think that was in the next month's publication of the paper.
Okay. I think perhaps at least one other time when I was with the governor's office and was running an amendment to the state's constitution, and she also interviewed me at that time and published an article relative to that.
Yeah.
Go ahead. No, wait.
No, I think the way you did that, I think, yeah, talking about, I think we both consider B a big sister to us, and so.
Wait a minute, you stole that from
No,
me.
that's what I'm saying. I think you need to go
Okay,
back there.
okay, yeah,
That's
well,
why I'm
you know,
encouraging you to
yeah.
go back there. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, okay. Well, yeah, she is a big sister. You know, it's like she's so inspirational. She has a phenomenal staff who, I mean, just she takes under her wing, and they're just awesome. I've had wonderful experience with her staff.
I think I will agree with that. B is kind of a fixture in our community. She is someone who has done, I mean, the newspaper is there, and it's an ever-present asset to the community. But I'm also going to mention the fact that she takes young women in particular, young women of color, under her wing and have introduced them to journalism, which, quite frankly, we need more young people of color in journalism. And the fact that when I meet with her and her young ladies, there's such an enthusiasm for the industry and for the profession, but also for her and respect for her. You don't find many independent newspapers who've survived the way B has survived. And I think that's the powerful story.
They've been in the game for a long, long time, and hopefully many, many, many more.
Many more, yeah.
Well, I would say, first of all, Urban Spectrum is a staple in the community. It's really a special thing, and we're very fortunate here in Denver to have a Black-owned and managed and edited newspaper for 30 years. And B, of course, is right at the center of that. I can remember sitting down with B a few years ago investigating a new business opportunity that she was looking at, and just really excited to hear all of her great ideas, and then have to boil that down to a pencil and paper where we're putting numbers to the project and trying to see if it actually works. And to B's credit, year after year she comes back interested and engaged in figuring out ways to make things happen.
And I always see B at all the events, so if you had to be there, you knew she would be there as well. So she was right in the mix, and I love the way that she engages with the community, specifically on identifying what the issues at hand and being able to represent them well in Urban Spectrum.
I know I would say with B, I mean, she's very active. She's everywhere, everywhere there's something going on. She's there, present, showing her face, trying to get a good story, trying to get some good background information. And obviously, we've known her for years. We have family in common with B, actually, so we've known her for years. But I just think, she's been very influential, in our community and in keeping us abreast of what's going on and keeping our community abreast of what's going on with the Urban Spectrum. So we've had only great experiences with them.
And I recall many years ago, B would often invite individuals to events that she sponsored. And one in particular was involving a historically Black college or university band that came to town. And she sent out an invitation to youth around the city and invited them to come and not only listen and participate with that, but she also had the opportunity to invite then retired John Elway. And it was the first opportunity that I had to meet him, and so she extended that opportunity not only for me, but for youth around the city. I can think of several other opportunities where she has done that, where she's had the opportunity to meet influential African Americans, and she has extended that opportunity to others in the community. And I think that is great, not only for our city, but for the paper as well.
And I think I would add to that just the fact that it's the only Black newspaper in the city of Denver, and being the size of the city we are and not having your typical type of communications or the PR that you would have in the Black community. We don't have a Black radio station. We don't have a lot of outlets. So just the fact that we have this pillar in the community that caters to the Black community and keeping us informed on what's going on and events that are happening, and that's so important to have that word and be able to learn what's going on in our community.
Yeah, it plays an important role in the African American voice.
Wow. Wow.
Word?
That's it.
Yeah, wow. He says wow. Phenomenal.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, I know I said wow because that's a big question, and there'll be probably a lot of words we can use. But I will call Urban Spectrum curious because I think that they probe questions and they probe personalities that you don't normally see in mainstream media. And that's why I find them curious. You didn't see cover articles on Peter Groff in the Denver Post, even though he was the third African American ever in the history of this nation to be elected president of a state senate. You didn't see cover stories on the First Lady, anywhere else in mainstream media, or me, when I was on city council. I think she makes it, the Urban Spectrum is curious enough to elevate those of us who may not be attractive to mainstream media and say, you know what, you're important enough to us to put you out there.
Quite phenomenal. I think it takes on her personality. She's a phenomenal woman, so I think her whole newspaper takes on that same persona. She is just one of those type of people who actually wants to make sure that she includes everybody, and she really does. When you look through the Urban Spectrum, it's a little bit of everything, just like you were saying. It's just a little bit of everything that mainstream newspaper wouldn't have taken an opportunity to take a chance on. But B does, and she takes that chance and takes that opportunity and gives the opportunities for others.
My word is empowering, and maybe our word is empowering. It's again, it's really important that the voices in our community have an outlet to be heard, where all the important issues of the day can be vetted and can be brought to the forefront. That's something special. Not a lot of African American communities have that, and to have that kind of resource and an outlet for 30 years is absolutely tremendous.
We are residents of the Five Points neighborhood and have lived here for the last about 20 years. So to see how stories are told of the great things that people are doing in our community, and then Matthew and I being able to reach out to them as it relates to whether it be Lincoln Hills Cares, Burkett Family Foundation, or just us as residents of Denver, Colorado. It has been a wonderful experience to use the magazine as an opportunity to understand all the different things that are happening.
One word, I would say needed. And why it's needed is because, us in our community, we need to know what's going on. People have their lives and they get caught up in moving fast and forget about things, and to have, the Urban Spectrum be able to keep everybody up on who's doing special things in our community or what we need to do in our community. I just think it's much needed.
One word I think I have, or one word that I do have would be, it'll just embellish on Chauncey's word as needed, but mine would just be community. For the Black community, I think we just, to go off of what Chauncey said, we really do need it. It's been essential to the Black community, and we just need it, so that would be my word.
I would say inspirational.
Yeah, I would say inspirational as well.
The fact that Eric owns his own law firm and commercial real estate practice, looking to another 30-year African American employer and business is remarkable. It's very difficult in owning your own business, and the fact that she has been able to do that and sustain through economic trials and tribulations, politics, etc., is inspirational, and we should look to her in terms of advice, in terms of how to keep a sound business. Being an HR professional and attorney, I understand how managing staff and people and keeping folks employed and how important that is. She's done a remarkable job, and she should be commended to that, so we find that inspirational.
And the future looks very bright for the Urban Denver Urban Spectrum. So we're happy to be involved with it, and we'll do whatever we can to assist in its growth.
Congratulations, B.
Congratulations.